So our next guest speaker is Dean Rohrs, talking to us on the impact of Rotarians and the Rotary Foundation. Dean Rohrs has, as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation, former vice president of Rotary and chairperson of the Rotary Foundation Canada, will use her vast Rotary experience and knowledge to speak about the work of the Rotary Foundation worldwide and how we, Rotarians, and our foundation contributes to the betterment of the world through health, education, and peace. Dean, her husband, Rhino, and their 3 children immigrated to Canada from South Africa 32 years ago. Dean grew up in Zambia and after marrying Rhino, lived in Malawi, Namibia, and South Africa. Dean was born into a Rotary family, and when Rhino joined Rotary in 1986, became an active Rotarian until she joined Rotary in 1989. On arriving in Vancouver, both Dean and Rhino joined the Rotary Club of West Vancouver and at present are members of the Rotary Club of Langley Central in District 5050. Dean has had a varied career from the early days of being an operating room nurse on Professor Christian Bernard's first heart transplant team, working for the Red Cross in South Africa, and after immigrating to Canada, together with Rhino, they own and manage a company that is involved in soil stabilization during road construction. Dean has served on district and zone committees which include Regional Rotary Coordinator and Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator, Pacific Northwest PETS Chair, District Governor in 2007-2008, Rotary International Director 2016 to 2018, Rotary International Vice President 2017 to 18, and President of the Rotary Foundation Canada 2021, and Trustee of the Rotary Foundation 2020 to 23. However, her best experience is leading teams of Rotarians, Rotaracts, and Interacts to Africa and seeing how this volunteer experience changes their lives. Please welcome Dean Rohrs.
That always brings such a smile to my face. I have to tell you that my father never accepted a woman in Rotary. The day I got appointed as Vice President of Rotary International, I had my oldest daughter send me a text which said, na, 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 na. But the journey through Rotary has been absolutely amazing. I have to say that the opportunities that I have been given for a very, very ordinary African woman, you could say. And we were not wealthy. We didn't sit on huge boards or corporations. You know, we were just very ordinary people. And look what Rotary has done for us. It has been an experience that I have to say thank you to every single day of my life. But it's also so exciting to be able to spend time with people like you in a district that I've visited many times. So it's lovely to see all the people that I know and to get to know as well so many people that I haven't met before. In the time that I've known you, you have become a significant player in donations to the Rotary Foundation. And on behalf of all of those recipients that will benefit from these donations, I say thank you. During my travels, Rotary often comes up in conversations. Most people associate us with local projects and fundraisers. Now, this is great, but few actually know what a global force Rotary is. Let's think about just the war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a humanitarian crisis which we've not seen since World War II, but it was forced upon us. It was not something we chose. The whole of the Rotary world came together with both large and small donations, humanitarian aid, and offers of help. There are many of those affected by this crisis who today thank Rotary for its aid and its help. Your district has looked after so many that have taken refuge with you. Thank you for doing that. We raised more than $15.5 million through our disaster aid fund and the one specifically for Ukraine. This was spent very quickly. And since that money was actually spent, we have raised more. But the reality is that there are more requests in the pipeline than what we actually have funds to be able to commit to. So the need is greater than the funds that we have at the moment. We sit with the disasters that have happened in Pakistan. Think of the floods. Can you imagine 2/3 of your country underwater? You know what floods do in this part of the world. But think of what being Canada having 2/3 of your country decimated. Grants are being done. There's a whole program to develop whole villages at this stage. Again, Rotary has stepped up to the plate. Turkey and Syria. I have a very special friend, a director, Safak. Safak is working, and he's not coming to the Melbourne Convention because he's leading the efforts in Istanbul to manage the earthquake-devastated areas. But the biggest tragedy of it all is Syria, because we have no Rotary clubs in Syria. It's the bordering nations Rotary clubs that are stepping up here, and that's Jordan and Lebanon. These are countries with nothing, some that have been decimated by war, that still have conflict themselves, but they are stepping up and helping. But this is what Rotary does. So really, this is the kind of impact that your foundation has every single day around the world, and why it deserves the support of all Rotary members. So it's pretty obvious that the most significant project done in Rotary's name are those accomplished through the Rotary Foundation. If we think about the passion of Rotary, we think of service. I'm not sure if service really encompasses whether I'm the treasurer of the club and I have to balance the books. I know my passion lies in the service that I give to others. So we really, the Rotary Foundation, is what is the grease on the axle on which the wheels of Rotary turn. This list of what Rotary does goes on and on. So let's think of the impact of that polio eradication effort that Marty was talking about today. Think about our peace programs. Think about our education programs. And again, think about our programs of scale that are starting to make an incredible difference in the world. All of these efforts to make the world a better place emanate from the Rotary Foundation. Now, I'm going to go back just a little bit to polio, because I think this is really important that we talk about this. We all know that this is our signature project and our promise to the children of the world that we would eradicate polio. But we also know that it's not easy. But we've not given up. Give that to Rotary. Since 1986, when we started the actual Polio Plus initiative, we have been working full force. From more than 1,000 paralyzed children a day, we have one. That's an incredible achievement that has been done. But it's only the front vision that you see. We have more than 400 cases of paralytic polio across the world. caused by vaccination. It's called vaccine-derived polio. And that is because the vaccine that we use in our third world countries is the oral vaccine. This is a live vaccine, which is given to a child. If that child is immunocompromised in any way, they are suffering from malnutrition, or there has not been vaccination in that area done on a regular basis, that virus can mutate and become virulent and can cause a form of polio. Ask yourself, do you think a mother cares that her child is paralyzed through wild polio or through a vaccine-derived polio? We have new vaccines. These are the injectable vaccines, but the countries have to be certified. They cost more. But slowly but surely, Africa is stepping, and one country after another has the oral vaccine now replaced by the injectable vaccine. We had an outbreak last year in Malawi. Malawi then infected Mozambique. We had 6 cases in Mozambique. We have no idea what's happening in Zimbabwe at the moment because we can't get in there. So I sit as a president of the Rotary World Health Days. It's one of our action groups. We have a grant of $3 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to provide polio education and vaccination in the health fairs that we run all over Africa. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have asked us to develop these health days in more than 11 countries that we are not working in at present because they know that Rotarians have access to the people on the ground, which nobody else has. That is the trust that they have in Rotary and Rotary's access to people that they serve. So you can give yourselves a hand, because what you have done for polio means that there is an understanding across the world that we have an effect which nobody else has. I will... Marty mentioned that polio is only a plane ride away. I don't know if you are aware that Canada didn't escape. We had 2 positive sewage samples for polio in Montreal in October of last year. Fortunately, we didn't have an actual case of polio, but it was connected to the case that was identified in Rochester of New York. So knowing we travel, we move, it was brought to Canada, but fortunately, because of our systems and our vaccination policy, it didn't take root. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation give us $150 million a year on the condition that we at Rotary raise $50 million for the polio eradication effort. We've struggled. Over the last 2 years, we didn't make it. We in Rotary had to go out and find those last $10, $17 million because our donations across the world were not sufficient. We did it. We did it somehow or other. There were some of the amazing churches like the Latter-day Saints who gave us a huge amount of money to help us within our effort. There were the Rotary Foundation Canada. We splurged and looked at unallocated funds that we had made out of our investments here, and we gave money. The World Fund gave a little bit of money. We as directors and trustees didn't travel as we should have traveled, and we used our allocations to top this up. So this is where Marty mentioned today, please let's not stop thinking about giving it. Let us finish this fight. Let us get it done. One case. We can taste it, right? It's up to us. Now, again, Marty mentioned the programs of scale. Another one that's really close to my heart, because I have sat actually on the committee that did some of the, looked at the nominations and made some choices. I've never done anything so hard in my life. To see what Rotary does in the world and how we could scale this and make this amazing programs. The first one, which Marty mentioned, Zambia, is for the eradication of malaria. It's 2 years that program has been in place, not even 2 years. 75% reduction in malaria in Malawi. Rotary did that. Now this is scalable. So as soon as our 3-year pilot is over, we have all our protocols in place. This will be scaled through the countries in that part of the world. Can you think what it will do, not only for the people and the health, but also to the economies of those countries? They lose such amount of money annually just because of that insidious disease. We know that we don't join an organization, we join a cause. So let's make sure that we tell our stories every time that we have an opportunity, so that we offer that opportunity for all to join us. In 1990-91, Rotary International President Paulo V.C. Costa of the Rotary Club of Santos in Sao Paulo, Brazil, said, "Rotary International's masterpiece is the Rotary Foundation. It transforms our most daring dreams into the most splendid realities. The Rotary world and even the political world are already aware that the Rotary Foundation is the most generous expression of Rotarian generosity. A generosity that not only brings benefits, but also brings help and cooperation to solve the problems that affect mankind. Only God achieves the impossible, but the Rotary Foundation achieves the best that mankind can possibly achieve." TRF gives out over $140 million annually for grants, and our endowment fund is now worth over close to $2 billion. It's about 1.6 at this particular moment. So much in expectancies and so much in actual cash. But as Marty again has mentioned, our dream and our goal is to have it at $2.025 billion in 2025. But why do we want that? Because then it makes us sustainable. We will not be affected by the variances in our investment portfolios, etc. We won't have to cut the funding matches for the grants that you want us to assist you with. We will have enough money to be able to serve you with your needs. But we have to raise those funds, and we have to raise them in this economic time while we are working with polio, and while we still think of our annual programs fund, which brings the money back into our districts. You know, I don't think there is a single country in the world that has not benefited from the work of Rotarians who use the Rotary Foundation to make their projects a reality. So you can see how important this is. Bono from the band U2 says, "The circumstance of our birth should not dictate whether we live or die, whether we have equal opportunity or not, whether we sleep in poverty or not." This has been a reminder. The play we saw last night, those presentations we had yesterday, doesn't that really bring it home, the circumstance of our birth? I believe that Rotary and the Rotary Foundation can and has changed the world by listening to the needs of communities and individuals and giving them the respect and means to become whole. Rotary also allows us, one individual, an ordinary person, to do extraordinary things. Our service not only transforms others' lives, but is itself a life-changing experience for us as well. Through Rotary, we become a part of something so much larger than who we are. But we also make Rotary greater than the sum of its parts. I've often wondered what the heck would my life have been like if I had lived without Rotary. I would never have built my schools in South Africa. I'd never have gone on polio immunization days in India and Nigeria. I would never have been part of repairing cleft palates in China, building wells in Malawi and Nigeria, walking with refugees in Rwanda, and the best of all, I rode a horse across Mongolia to visit schools. But the best of all was always seeing the smiles on the faces of the people that we were bringing a gift to. And that gift was always dignity and hope. So many of you have contributed to a project that has been strong in my heart these past 10 years. And I will just mention it very briefly because Pat Killoran and I were involved with a school that you all supported, APU, Atsikana Pa Ulendo in Malawi. 10 years we worked with the school. It started with a bare piece of ground and the dream of 2 teachers. Today it stands independently, no longer needing Rotary to help and support. It has more than 680 girls in the residence, high school girls. It has a primary school. It has the highest matriculation passing rate in Malawi. You did that. You, Rotarians, did that. I don't know if Pat ever shared with you part of the passion of why the school is so important. And this comes from my African background and the understanding of the cruelty of culture. Those young girls, as soon as they reach puberty, are either sold off or given in marriage. But there's a custom which includes a man, and his name is the hyena. The parents contract him to spend time with their daughter and to break her into marriage. So they get locked up together, and depending on how much money the parents can pay, it'll be for 24 hours, 48 hours. I cannot tell you what those girls are like when we get them at the school. They need medical attention, they need psychological attention, they wet their beds, they have AIDS because he is HIV positive. This is what you are protecting. This is what you are changing. So yes, Rotary does change the world. So I thank you and your district leadership who through donations and grants really have made the school the best in Malawi. I'm so privileged to have this opportunity in my life to meet so many people all over the world, all working together to bring peace and equal opportunity to all. But I can't say it better than Sir Winston Churchill, who said, "You make a living from what you get, but you make a life from what you give." You are the true Rotarians. You who have come here together to celebrate Rotary and the Rotary Foundation, who through your generous donations are changing the world for a better place, who are bringing respect and equality to all. A last little story. Some years ago, I stood on the top of a mountaintop in Nepal. As vice president, I was inaugurating a whole new village that through special funds from the Rotary Foundation was replacing a village that had been decimated by the Nepalese earthquake. To see the children, to see the faces of those people that had been sleeping outside in those elements, and you know what winters are like in Nepal. Rotary had given them dignity. Rotary had given them a home. Rotary had given them hope. I'll just skip on this one because I think time's getting late. So, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you on behalf of every child and person that you have touched by your actions and your donations. But the reality is that I don't stand here alone. I stand side by every single recipient that you have ever touched. You might know them, you might never know who they are or where they are in the world, but they know you. At this time, although you have already done so much, there is still much to do. Our journey is not yet ended, and in the words of Nelson Mandela, there is no passion to be found playing small or in settling for a life that is less than the one that you are capable of living. So as we take this journey to make our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Your journey to shine the light of peace and equality for all in the world is never over until the job is done. Our task to eradicate polio is never done until no polio virus exists on this earth. We know what needs to be done, and we're doing it as we walk hand in hand with Rotary. Yes, you are part of this journey. Be proud of it. And once again, accept the thanks of those that have received. Now may you all go in peace. Thank you.
Can you just stay for a few minutes for questions?
Yes. Oh, yes, sure. Sure. Oh, sit down. Come on, sit down.
So we have a few extra minutes here. So we're going to have a question and answer period. So if anybody has some questions, Pat has got the mic for you to ask them of Dean.
And it doesn't have to be foundation questions. I'll try and answer anything that you would like to ask.
Dean, while people are thinking, we often hear about the Rotary Foundation, and you mentioned the Rotary Foundation Canada. Can you just take a moment just to explain to Rotarians the difference?
The Rotary Foundation Canada is an associate foundation. Rotary Foundation has 8 associate foundations across the world. We were established, we're the oldest foundation, and we were established just for one person. And that is to be able to give you a tax certificate for your donations. So if you see every single tax certificate you get has my signature on it. I know, I feel very responsible these days. What happens is, because we conform to all the rules and regulations of Canada Revenue Agent, every cent of money that is donated by a Canadian Rotarian remains in Canada. It doesn't go to the US. It might do a divergent journey, but it lands back in our hands. We invest it, and we invest it here in Canada under the requirements of what is needed for Canadian charities. Then when Rotary does the TRF does the global grants or needs funds or whatever it is that are from the monies that are donated by Canadians, we allow them to draw that from our accounts. And I'm very proud to say that our return on investment has been at least 1% higher than TRF has been over these last. So we keep rubbing that down their throats and saying, so we care for your money, we are here to answer questions. We are also here to negotiate with the Canadian government. Like on, I think it's the 10th of June, I need to be in Ottawa to advocate for polio funds because the Canadian government has been very generous. In fact, they are short $60 million of $2 billion of contributions to polio. In the same way, we work with Global Affairs Canada to try and get grants that we can use in support of your programs and projects. Unfortunately, because of the sort of political and the economic situation, those negotiations are a little slow at the moment, but we hope by next year that we will have some answers for you on that as well. So that is the Rotary Foundation Canada.
This is not a question, it's a comment. I think the foundation has it wrong. We keep saying we're missing our target. We keep saying we're this close. I think what we should be saying, I mean, people are complaining, not really complaining, but saying we keep throwing money at polio and we're getting closer, but we're not finishing the job. I think what we should focus on, we're saving something like 300,000 lives a year by donating to the foundation. That should be what we're talking about. We're saving lives. Just because we're missing this little target doesn't mean we're doing a fantastic job donating to the foundation. Thank you.
I thank you very much for pointing that out. If you look at the promotions that have been done for polio over the last 3 years, we are no longer using that image. That was an image of its time, and that actually came from one of our sort of main, you could say, representatives or ambassadors. It was Desmond Tutu who said, "You are that close." So it became the buzzword for, we don't use it because we are absolutely conscious. Yes, we are not that close. We've done that, right? It's not that that's missing. This is what we have done. Any more? Well, thank you very much for having me, and I am around still if you need to ask any other questions.